Thank you for tuning into the video. I am Stephen Wilson. I am a congressional candidate in Missouri for the 3rd District. I'm running in the Libertarian Party in 2012. The purpose of this is to explain something in my platform called the line of culpability, or the vote of no confidence model. Hopefully at the end of the video you'll understand the structuralism and the consequent of the line of culpability. Now, we assume that in any given game, all of the game players want justice or fair play. And that means that all people are treated the same and only get a reward if they've earned it through their own merit. Now, this assumption obviously becomes a problem, and sometimes it does get lost in translation. But for this particular model, I'm going to assume that all individual people in Missouri would like to remain individually sovereign. Now, the model itself is going to be taken from theory into application through something that we identify as a pre-existing variant, which would be your ballot or your election cycle. And what's going to happen is you're going to vote just like you normally would, but there's going to be an alteration to your ballot. And if for any reason that you decide that there is something going on during the campaign, or there's something in the government that you don't agree with, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to acknowledge that all governments require participation and funding. When you decide to pick the vote of no confidence on your ballot, basically what you're going to be doing is you are going to be exiting a game where you find no justice. Now, the actual system itself, the vote of no confidence model, it is important that we understand some basic premises about game theory. I'm not going to teach you game theory. I'm not going to teach you structuralism. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you just a foundation, so we have something to stand on, so we can understand this together. Within brevity, we assume in any given game that the choice equals the outcome. And obviously, when we have these discussions about branches and paradigms and lines of culpability, where the human game player has an action or acts upon something and there is going to be an outcome, we have to understand that the relationship, when you make a choice as a game player, you believe that there is a correlation between a choice and your desired outcome. It is irrational for you to believe that you would make a choice that would lead to an outcome that you don't want. So we have to assume that you know what you want, that the outcome is desired, and that you believe that your choice is going to get you to that desired outcome. Now, this is very simple, but apparently for some of the voters in Missouri, this is a concept where there is more emotivism than logic. So take a couple seconds to just look this over and understand that there is a relationship, because you have a requirement to understand this principle, because if you don't understand this principle, everything that comes after is going to be irrelevant. So this is going to be your floor. This is going to be your foundation, that the choice and the outcome are correlative. And hopefully there was something that you picked up in that last screen, that if for any reason you keep using emotivism rather than logic, your choice plateau is identified as an illusion. Now, what you're looking at is a sample game of what you would identify as a choice plateau relationship. Now, if you look upon the top tier, you identify that player 1 has a choice plateau of A, B, and C. Now, the line of sight indicates that game player 1 believes that choosing A is going to have an outcome of A1, choosing B will have an outcome of B1, and choosing an outcome of C will offer C1. Now, obviously, in any given game, this is what the player wants. Now, there is no way to guarantee that that's what the player is going to get. But again, we have to go through the idea that the relationship is correlative. It would be irrational if player 1 looked upon choice plateau and indicated that B could get to A1. Because if the game player has played this game before, we now know that the player has a history of this game, and if all the conditions are the same, if the player wants A1, they have to choose A. And there is no way to alleviate this line of sight. There's no way to manipulate it before you play the game. Now, this is where the body politic and many of the people in Missouri sort of get lost in the idea, because what's happening here is the fact that your choice plateau in the body politic is an illusion. Now, this illusion plays out in the idea that you have multiple choice or more than one choice in your choice plateau, but you keep getting the same outcome. And this is identified in tier 2 at the bottom of the screen. And when we look at the bottom of the screen, we identify that there has been a transition, that the game went from a sample of player 1. Now we have the game player with the name voter. And the choice plateau is A, B, and C. But as you noticed, the voter is actually arriving from the choice plateau into one singular outcome, or an identical outcome. Now, this is where the premise of the illusion of choice comes into play. If you had never played this game before, and the voter had approached and seen the choice plateau, A, B, and C, the voter would believe that all three of the choices would lend itself towards three separate outcomes, as you see in the top tier. But the voter, who has never played this game before, or if they have, they've gone through this and they have indicated that that appears to be something that they will tolerate, they come to the conclusion that no matter what they pick, they get the same outcome. And this, of course, is completely irrational. This is where the vote of no confidence comes into play, because here you have an entity that is altering the rules of this game. And if you are in a game and somebody alters the rules in the middle of the game, it is irrational for you to continue to play. Because if someone is going to play a game with rules that are in change or in flux, there is no way for you to actually understand that you're going to be able to win the game. You're playing to lose. And as you see at the bottom of the screen, the voter keeps voting, but they're voting for the same thing, because when you arrive at X, A, B, and C, they're all the same. The choice plateau is an illusion. Now that I have established the foundational premise of the illusion of choice, it is now time for us to move into something a little bit more real. As we have identified the body politic, we identify in color theory the Democratic and the Republican parties in America, the two major parties. Now, for those people that operate in third parties, especially for those of you that understand the libertarian, we do use something called the none of the above. Now, this is something that people oftentimes confuse for the vote of no confidence. And I just want to clean this up. I'm not going to argue the point. I'm just going to tell you so there is clarity with us. None of the above is identified in the game as a proxy vote. It is not an exit strategy. It is a protest. Now, you're protesting against the choice plateau that you have on your ballot, but none of the above doesn't actually do anything other than the protest. And as we have gone through and tried to explain to ourselves about what it is that we want, we identify the outcome. We look at the Democrat, we look at the Republican, and we have established that there is some historicalism. So therefore, the Democrat and the Republican, they have built what you would call brand equity, and this brand equity is supposed to be able to allow them to move to a place where we can say that we assume that the Republican is going to give me A1 and B1, and the Democrat is going to give me D4 and D8. Now, this separation again is still based on the premise of the actual game itself, the line of culpability or the line of sight. But as you see in this illustration here, both the Democrat and the Republican lead you into a rectangle of fuzzy logic, because when you have first past the post, you have to acknowledge that a majority is going to dictate to the minority. And once you get beyond 50.1% of the vote, you're in charge. Well, that means that the minority population in that particular domain, they are now beholden to the people who are in the majority. And therefore, you have to understand that the vote of no confidence is an exit strategy, that you don't participate and you don't pay for what's happening around you. You still have to deal with the outcomes, but you actually break off. You're not responsible for anything that goes on. I hope that I have been able to establish a foundation for you to understand the premise of what this model is doing. I am not using any formulas or terminology. I'm keeping this fairly simple, so I really hope that if you've come this far that you understand what I'm trying to accomplish. Now that I have gone through some of the theory, it is now time for us to play a game in real time. It is now time for us to go through the applied science of the vote of no confidence. For this particular game, we were going to have a sample ballot for the state of misery, or misery land, which is just a theoretical place, or for maybe some of you it might be real, but that wasn't intentional. But the ballot would be identified as the ballot that you get in any given election. It's going to have the parties and candidates, and it's going to have your ability to mark one person per race. Now, what you're looking at right now is a ballot wherein you've got a choice plateau for candidates A, B, and C. One of the easiest ways to understand the vote of no confidence is to treat it like a candidate. The red oval on the screen would be identified as the way that you would mark the vote of no confidence, in the same way that you would say, in the past I have voted for candidate A. I would mark off that box just like you would in a normal vote. There is no difference. And the way that you would basically vote right now, you would go to your polling place, you would show your ID, they would mark off your address to make sure that you're registered to vote, and you would be given your pen and your ballot, and then you would vote, and then you would put it in the machine. But here, there is going to be a slight change. For the vote of no confidence, what you're going to do is, you're going to have the ability to vote of no confidence per each individual vote. When you look at your ballot, let's say for example you are voting for the Missouri Land District number 3. And you looked at the candidates and you indicated that none of the candidates you believe are worthy, and therefore you have decided that you're going to issue the vote of no confidence for that domain. What you would do is you would mark off vote of no confidence, go up to one of the individuals working the poll and tell them that you do this of your own free will, that for the domain of District 3 in Missouri Land, you issue a vote of no confidence. The very moment that the person working the poll indicates that they acknowledge that you've done this of your own free will, which would be basically you have to initial your ballot, you're going to get an exemption card. Now the exemption card is going to be used to get you out of paying for the taxes in your domain. And you're going to keep that card, or rather the card is going to be, it can be used for the duration of the actual race that you voted for the vote of no confidence. Let's say, for example, that we're talking about the U.S. Congress, talking about the House. Well, every American knows that that's for 2 years. So if you wanted to issue a vote of no confidence in District 3, that means that your exemption card would be good for 2 years. And at 2 years and 1 day, the card would be deemed invalid. And the card would be issued to you as a voter in the same way that you might have your driver's license, in the same way that you might have a passport. The card is your responsibility and it belongs to you alone. It's not a group card, it's your card. And now we're going to move into what exactly the exemption card is going to be used for and its main purpose. Now, because of the fact that the vote of no confidence is an exit strategy, and if you've gotten this far, hopefully you understand that you're exiting the participation of it. Although you are still going to be in your domain, you're still going to be an American, you're still going to be a citizen, but you have decided that you will not participate in these proceedings. The exemption card is about the finance. Governments need financing, and when we start to look at their sources of revenue, we're talking about taxation, we're talking about fees, and basically the exemption card is going to help you maintain your own individual sovereignty in regards to your own finance. Now, there is going to be a consequence to this, and as I mentioned earlier, I will be dealing that when this gets finished. But in the moment, we must identify, first of all, that the card can only be used in their own domain. For example, if we were talking about the U.S. Missouri Congress, Missouri District number 3, let's say, for example, you lived in Gasconade County and you decided to go to Callaway and you were going to buy a tractor. All you would have to do is, in order to get out of the taxation, is to purchase the tractor and give the person who is selling you the vehicle or the tractor, give them your exemption card, scan it like you do an ATM or a credit card, and the taxation will be removed. Something else that needs to be acknowledged rather quickly here is the fact that you have to understand that you have to be in your own domain. And by that I mean, if we identify the districts presently used for district number 3, let's say, for example, you live in Cole County and you decided to go to Boone County and you were going to buy some furniture. Because in 2012, Boone County is no longer going to be acknowledged in the 3rd district, although you live in Cole and you issued a vote of no confidence for the people in that congressional race, your card cannot be used in Boone County. And also, the card, as mentioned earlier, cannot be used by anybody but the voter. It's not a group card, it's your card. And you have to understand that you can't just pass it around. Even if it's your family, it's your card. So when you go to the store, it's going to be your responsibility to make sure. And of course, there is going to be, once again, the government might try to use fees or taxes or things like that. At any given moment that the money is going to be given to the government, the vote of no confidence allows you to stop financing the government in your domain. It is now time for me to deal with the consequent of the game. And there is going to be one. No matter your justification, the cause to effect relationship always has a consequent, regardless of what it's for or why it's even born. And the consequent of the line of culpability, or the line of sight, or the vote of no confidence, whatever you would like to call it, you have to understand that the government that we presently have still needs funding. And in a state like Missouri, that is extremely rural, the county, that your property taxes, your sales taxes, if you're going to opt out of the government, you've got to understand that those entities that you now take for granted, they're the ones that are going to get hurt first. So the vote of no confidence is not an end-all be-all. It's just one thing to acknowledge about what's happening around you. For whatever reason that you don't like the people running for office, that you don't like the direction of the country, you don't agree with that party, or you don't think that anybody running is intelligent enough, for whatever reason, the vote of no confidence carries a consequent. Because in the rural areas of Missouri, you're talking about your ambulance, your police, your fire departments, your road safety, your utilities. And unless your area has the ability to take in charity, if you would still like to fund them, they still need the ability to collect money, because you still have to be able to pay for them as you would in the market device. Something for something, quid pro quo. So, in as much as we acknowledge the market and we look at the government and we try to separate them, you can't separate them for very long. No matter why no matter why you want to get out of America, or the government, or a citizen, or you don't want to have anything to do with the government. You don't want to have to participate in war, Guantanamo Bay, medical marijuana, whatever your issue. You have to understand that the vote of no confidence is going to impact the financing in your domain, which is going to impact your safety in the short term. So you need to consider the positive and the negative, which is why that you need to make a choice in logic and reason. I cannot tell you what to do, but it is important that you understand that there is going to be a consequence to this, and that you need to make your decision based on information, perfect information, and you need to understand what's going to happen to you over the duration of time. I hope that I have been able to explain things in a way that you can understand. There have been several questions about this, and I hope that I've been able to address them all. Again, I did everything I could to try to keep everything simple and approachable for all the people in this election. Again, my name is Stephen Wilson, and I'm running for Congress in the Missouri 3rd District. If you have anything else, you can contact me through this page, or you can go to my website at MissouriStatesman.com. And for those of you that would like more information about the local party or the state party, if you're interested in being a libertarian, you can go to lpmo.org and you can find out more information about the activities throughout the entire state. Thank you for your time.